Hey everybody, and welcome to the intro video for P5, the Snake game. This is a fitting final project. It's very complex, lots of moving parts, but it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be a good challenge for you all, and I'm actually going to be doing it kind of with you. So this is the first video. I'm probably going to put out a few more helpful videos as we go along, not revealing any solutions, but just showing you how to do stuff that you have to do in this project, because it does ask for some pretty unique things, stuff that you haven't really done before. But it also uses a lot of things that you've already done and that you're familiar with, especially from that to-do list activity and the light bright. Using classic Java things like two-dimensional arrays to manage graphical components, keeping track of things like that, popping up option panes, you're going to do again, and so it's going to be really, really great. The first thing I want to show you is a working version of the project. Now this is one of the other instructor solutions. I haven't done the project yet. Like I said, I'm going to be doing it with you. So your solution does not have to be as crazy or as advanced as this, but I think it's a good example of what a working one might look like, and also just how the game works in general. So I'm going to run it for you. I don't have it on the screen, of course, because it's the solution, so let me pop it up. The first thing it's going to pop up is a option pane. It's going to ask you for these settings. So let's see what happens if I hit no. Oh, it stops the program. Cool. Let's run it again. It's going to say play the game. It's going to be width and height and a speed. And let's click yes. So you can see my little snake going. This is that classic game you might have played on a computer as a kid. I collided with the edge. And so, of course, the point of the game is if you collide with the edge, you're going to lose. And so when you lose, it looks like it pops up the menu again. Click yes, and you can see your snake grows over time. Depending on how many spots you move, it grows. And I don't really know why they put a 1 on these spaces. I think I can go through them again. And if you collide with the edge, you lose. Also, if you collide with yourself, you lose. Oh, interesting. Looks like maybe you can't go through a space more than once. Let's see. Okay. I must have accidentally collided with myself somehow. And I just collided with myself, and you can see if you hit the edge or your snake, you'll lose. So that's what the working game looks like. Close out of that guy. Oh, maybe I have to click no to close it. There you go. And so next, I'm going to read through a lot of this stuff with you. In fact, let's start now. So it's going to get you started with a snake class, a snake settings. We'll talk about these classes a little bit more. These are kind of more general guidelines, and then below in the code requirements, it's going to walk you through kind of another bottom-up development approach, starting with the snake class, the snake settings, snake GUI, snake settings panel. So kind of a bottom-up approach. I would recommend starting with the snake class and then kind of probably the snake settings, then the snake GUI, and then you can kind of decide maybe which one you want to work on, whether it's snake GUI, snake settings panel, or the snake tile. But I definitely recommend starting with snake and snake settings. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. These are kind of more general guidelines. You've got your development strategy. Make sure you read all of those project specifications, sketch out the design on a piece of paper, labeling what you think are going to be J buttons, what you think are going to be a text area or a J panel. That's going to be really helpful. And so, excuse me, I recommend that you kind of draw out your design on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to include, all the grid buttons, but I would draw out something like this and then start to label the different graphical components. That's going to help you figure out what's going to be in each different class in your program, and also what graphical components you're going to be using for those. The next thing I would look at, maybe to get a general idea, once you've got that drawn up, is this UML diagram that they've given you. This is the UML diagram for that solution I showed you. And it's really cool because it shows the relationships between the different classes, but it also kind of gives you some hints. You can see the snake interface, it's got all these methods in it, so you know what methods are going to be in the snake class, of course, but it gives you, they have a path and array list of points. That's the path that the snake has taken through the game so far. Tail length, how long the snake is. Then you've got your snake GUI. It's got some, looks like it's got a level, point label, time delay, a bunch of stuff in there that might be helpful for helping you figure out what could be inside of your snake GUI. Now, you don't have to do your program the same way as the instructor solution. In fact, I think yours can be a lot more simple than that really advanced solution. But this is just helpful to figure out what it could look like. It even says what it could look like. And a good place to start developing is the data classes, aka the snake class and the snake settings class. And then it says make a first pass. Add the GUI code, focus on the layout for the constructors, or snake GUI, settings panel, and snake tile, so where you're setting up those graphical components. And as you're putting those graphical components together, don't spend too much time on making it look perfect. You just want to see all the parts kind of in the right space. So like if you got a grid of snake tiles, you're good. And then you can kind of fine tune it once you have your program logic working. So like your snake responding to your inputs and things like that. I would probably recommend, once you're working on the GUIs, starting with the snake tile, then the snake settings panel, and then the snake GUI. I would probably go like that. Finally, add the methods and listeners as specified below and connect them to their appropriate components. And now we're getting into the meat of it, going through those bullet points of how to, implement the program. It's pretty late at night when I'm recording this, so sorry if I keep yawning. And so you're actually given a snake interface when you're implementing the snake class. And so what I want to do now is I want to go through these and actually stub out some stuff with you. Stub out these classes. And what that means is probably the snake interface, implement the snake interface methods, add these different constructors, add this data to the snake settings, and on from there. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's download this snake interface. Download that, and I gotta copy it into my snake project. Exit out of that solution I showed you. There we go. So now that I said I'm going to implement snake interface, whoa, come on, Java, you're not going to give me the nice little hints to implement the methods here? Alright, I guess it's not going to give me the little hints to implement the methods. No worries here. We'll just copy over all the methods. And we're just going to return null on the ones that return an object, just so that our program actually compiles. Now usually IntelliJ would give me a nice hint when I say that I implement an interface, so I don't know why it's not doing that for me here. The documentation in here when you copy them over. Maybe yours will let you implement the interface and be all nice like that. But it is handy to have the documentation from the interface in here when you're writing your methods. That way, return to string. That way, it's just all nice and easy to see what you have to do in each method. Now, there's a lot of methods in here. However, you've got the snake interface documentation to guide you, just like the tic-tac-toe interface in P4. And this is going to be the huge help to help you figure out what you need to do with the snake class. These documentation here on the methods are going to tell you exactly what you need to do inside of your snake class and what each method needs to do. Now, notice a couple things. When I actually first looked at this snake class, and here I'm going to open up the solution again just to show you. Well, actually, we don't even need to open up the example. Now, when I looked at this program at first, I was like, holy cow, I don't even know how I would go about implementing this at first. But once I looked at how the snake worked, I realized something. You'll see that in here, you have to keep track of the number of locations the snake has visited. And if you look in that inside of this UML diagram, you'll actually see in the snake class they have this path variable. That gives you a hint that we're actually keeping track of every point the snake has visited throughout the whole game. Now that might seem like a lot of points to you, but really that's just a drop in the bucket in terms of what an array list can hold. Array lists can hold thousands of items, even more than that. Really, it depends on how much memory your JVM has allocated to it, but ours has more than enough space to contain all the point objects, and plus point objects are so small that our snake has visited. And so if we're keeping track of every point the snake has visited, well then the current snake that's shown on the screen is really just a subset of those points. They're the most recent, however long your snake is, points. And so really, we've kept track of this whole path that we're showing here in this game window. All that, those darker gray spaces are in our path array. And the black spaces that form the body of the snake are the most recent, however many points, whatever your snake's length is at that point. And as your snake grows, you just increase the amount of points in your path that you show as the color of your snake. And so your snake is really a subset of all the points that your snake has visited during the game. They're just, if you think of it as a stack of point objects, you know, your snake is the top 5 in that, or the first or the last 5 in your array list, the most 5 recently added to the end. And you can see that with this get snake method. Returns an array with the current snake locations. The head should be the first point in the array, and the last point should be the end of the tail. And that array is just, again, that slice, that last slice of your array list of, they called it path, whatever array list you're using to keep track of all the points that the snake has visited. And then when you've got that snake object in your GUI, you just get the snake out of that, and that's how you know which points to color, black or whatever color you want your body or your snake to be, and then gray for the path points, and then lighter gray for the points that haven't been touched yet. And so that's kind of a nice hint, and that's kind of what helped me realize, oh, this program actually isn't so hard. It's just how you think about how you form the body of that snake. So let's keep going and stub out a few of our other classes. Snake settings, cool. It says, at minimum, this should store the width and height of your game board and the speed of your snake. Fast, medium, slow. You should create an enumerated type for speed. Cool. Appropriate getters and setters. Create a snake settings object in the main method. Blah, blah, blah. Snake GUI.java is next, so let's get working on that snake settings. So if you're going to create an enum for the speed, I'm going to call it speed. We'll do fast, medium, slow. A good way to remember how to create an enum would be looking at your task class. Take your task category from your to-do list. Now we're going to do the width and height of our game board. And I'm going to give those an initial value. Say private and width equals initial width. And I'm going to make some constants to represent the initial width and initial height. Let's do 30. And we'll do 20. We'll give those their initial values, and we'll allow you to override them in the constructor. Width, height, and then let's do the speed. Oh, and we need a variable to hold our speed. So let's do private speed. And again, we'll give this the initial value of speed dot medium. Overriding those initial values. let's see, is IntelliJ smart enough to let me create getters and setters? Generate, let's see, getter and setter. We'll select. Ooh, I gotta change this variable to I. There we go. So you might have this in your clips if you do something similar. I'm going to generate a getter and setter for width, height, and speed. And of course I have to actually move some of my variables back around. I'm going to do constants up there. My instance variables here. These are probably actually going to have to be public because I think we're going to want to be able to access them in our GUI. In fact, I think I'm going to make these public static. Settings class in the GUI class, and I'll show you why we're going to make those static in a little bit here. But remember, these are the constants and the enum, not the instance variables that we're making static, because then we would have issues if we when we did our getters and setters and stuff. So I think that's good for the settings for now. Let's see, snake-GUI.job. This is the primary top-level GUI container for the project. It's going to contain the main method with the entry point and all that good stuff. Okay, add the appropriate components. So I'm not going to go into too much great detail about setting up the snake GUI. I want to give you the opportunity to do that. But I am going to do a couple things. The first thing I want to do is when I start it, I want to pop up that J option pane to choose your game settings. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create my GUI and pop up that option pane. But first, I want to create this Snake GUI class. Now, I really am flying by the seat of my pants here, so I apologize if I slow down a little bit. I just want to make sure that I'm addressing everything here that we want to talk about. Cool. The game is over. Settings should be displayed again. That's how you're going to do it with that J options pane. Okay. Snake GUI class is going to extend J component and implement key listener. Cool. Extends J component, implements key listener. All right. And again, I'm not super sure why it's not giving me those little hints to implement the interfaces and stuff. I must not have my project set up quite properly. Let me see if I can. Alright, it looks like it knows it's a Java project. Here, let's see. Maybe I need to. There we go. I just had to mark this as my source directory. what exactly to do with these guys in a little bit here. Let's go into our snake class. Looks like we're gonna have to class. That seems happy. Let's go to snake settings. Now it looks like it's telling us some steps unnecessary. Our settings are redundant. Equals cool. Let's remove that. Redundant initializers. I don't think they're actually redundant. And awesome. It doesn't tell me the public's unnecessary on the interface, but since the interface was given to us, I'm not going to modify it. Awesome. And don't forget, in the snake interface, we also got an enum direction and default start tail length. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now let's go back to the snake GUI. So let's see if we can get any hints about maybe, I kind of want to mess around with this key listener. Maybe that J option pane could choose settings. Constructor, set up your snake settings, the panel you'll use to show those settings, the key listener. Okay, cool. So let's work on this snake settings panel. Actually, I want to go over how the snake settings panel is going to work. So, because that's going to be something we set up in snake GUI. So constructor should accept a parameter of snake settings object. So if you go up to that UML diagram, again, this thing is super handy. The snake settings panel is going to have an internal snake settings object. Well, actually, it's not shown there, but I do see a get settings. So that means it has to have a settings instance variable in there. Accept as a parameter a snake setting object that will display and allow users to update their settings. It's recommended to have a private setup GUI method that sets up the various components. Okay. Actually, you know what? I just realized, I think I had it wrong about how my settings. I was thinking my snake settings would need to have a constructor that takes in these arguments. But actually, I looked at the little hint in the UML diagram, and wouldn't you know, snake settings has a default constructor with no arguments. So, and I believe what ends up happening is we set all of our settings to the defaults, then we'll pop up the pane and allow the user to change those, and then the snake settings object will just keep track, excuse me, of the selected settings. So, I'm going to go ahead and modify my snake settings to do that. We'll have those getters and setters so we can change those. So we're going to do width equals initial width, height equals initial height, and speed will start out as speed dot medium. Awesome. Variable is already assigned to this value. Awesome. Look at that. We already actually did all that stuff, so we actually don't even need a constructor since we are able to do all of our initialization up here. If you don't have anything to do with the constructor, you actually don't need one. Now, let's see about the snake settings panel. Okay, we'll accept the snake settings object that will display and allow users to update the settings. And then we're going to need a JLabel text field and combo box, which combo box is one of those drop downs. So we need to set the width, height, and the speed at least. Those are the minimum settings your game needs to have. So let's go ahead and set up our panel. So of course, it's going to be it's a panel class, so you know it's probably going to be popping up with their initial values, and display those in a JOption pane. Pop it up when we start the GUI. I think that would be a good place to get you all going. So let's do that. And it's gonna extend JPanel. Awesome. And let's go ahead and create the constructor. And we know we need a snake setting, so let's do private snake settings. We'll just call it settings. And this is going to take a snake settings as a parameter. We're going to do this dot settings equals settings, the one we got passed in, which I think is what we needed to do. Constructor should accept as a parameter the snake settings object. Awesome. And then let's just create the labels, create the text fields, and you guys can organize them later. So let's just create JLabel with label equals new JLabel with cool. Let's add with label, so we'll get that component added to our GUI. I'm just going to change this guy to height. Now, after our width label, we probably need to do the width text box. So I'm actually going to separate these with some white space to show some logical separation between these components. Now we'll do J text field, width field, new J text field, and let's do settings.width. We'll set the text in our text field to a default value. Let's add field. We'll do the same thing we did here. Height field. Settings.getHeight. Height field. Now this JCombo box sounds super intimidating, but it's really not. Let's go combo box Java. I think Java 11 is the current version. And let's look at these docs here. A component that combines a button or an editable field and a drop-down list. The user can select a value from the drop-down list, which appears at the user's request. If you make the combo box editable, then the combo box includes an editable field into which the user can type a value. Ooh, that's cool. Looks like you can create one that contains items in the specified array. Okay. And vector, we don't know what those are yet. Combo box model, don't think that's it. I think what we want is it to take a list of items. We're going to use this drop down in the JCombo box to show our speed. So there's actually a way to get the values from an enum as an array, and I'll show you. So let's do our JCombo. And it's going to be of type speed. So it's going to be snake settings.speed. And we're going to do speed selectors, what we'll call it, JCombo box. And I think we can just leave those blank. Now the way you get the values of an enum in an array is the name of the enum dot values. It's a built-in method into all enum classes. Let's look at the docs for that really quick. Returns an array containing the constants of this enum type in the order they're declared. Awesome. And I think that means we might want to declare ours in fast, medium, slow. That's good. Now At least they're kind of in a faster to slower order. Cool. We're going to do this .add speed selector. And let's add a label. We'll call it speed. Awesome. So I think we've got our settings panel set up correctly. Now let's see if we can pop up that JOption pane. Well, the first thing we need in here is a main method. Now, I still don't remember how to set up a main method for GUIs. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go and open up our LiteBrite, and I'm going to steal the main method from that. And you can do that too. Just we'll have to make sure that we modify this stuff in here to suit our needs. But let's go back to our snake class. Just paste that bad boy in there. Get it set up to your liking. Of course, this is going to be snake game. Do exit on close. And we're not going to add anything to it just yet. Well, we got to add something to it. So, hey, let's create a nice inner class. Private class snake panel. Extends JPanel. This will give us something to add all of our stuff to. And we can modify this later if need be, but I just want to pop up a JOption pane. And I'm just going to leave snake panel like that. We'll call it snake panel. Ooh, why doesn't it like that? Okay, so I had to stop and take a moment to read through the directions again. So this is actually super interesting. In our main method, we're actually going to create a JFrame object and load a snake GUI object. And the reason we can actually, even though we're in the main method, we can create a snake GUI object because we're in a static method. So we actually can create a snake GUI object, which is non-static, from our static method. Kind of cool, right? And that's explained how to do that here. And our snake GUI is actually going to do all the setup of our program, getting all those initial values and stuff. First, I just want to kind of copy this JOption pane code here. Be careful when you're copying stuff from Google Docs. Sometimes it doesn't paste over too well. And I want to just pop this up when we create our snake GUI, which means that we're going to need a constructor. I'm actually going to move this down here to the bottom, just so it's out of the way, because we're not going to touch the main method too much. Let's try pasting this code. Hopefully it pastes correctly. Alright, looks like it pasted okay, but I am going to make this really nice and well organized because this is such a long method or set of arguments. And this hint is actually given to you here when it talks about popping up the option pane. So I just want to get this set up and popping up, running the program running, popping up the option pane for the settings. And I think that's a good starting point for this first video. Okay, now let's see. So of course, snake GUI is the parent component. Let's see what the arguments are called. Parent component, the message, the thing that's going to be displayed, the title, the option type, and the message type. Alright, I wonder what these other types are. You might have fun messing with these. So of course we need a settings panel. So first let's do snake settings panel. What do we need in this constructor? A snake settings object. So let's do snake setting, snake settings. That one just has a default constructor. Oops, pass it to settings. And cool, I think we're in a place where we can run our program. All right, and look, it pops up a window. How cool. Now, it didn't set the initial values on these, which is kind of unfortunate. We also didn't do anything else, and our Java app is running and I have to quit it manually. Cool. We also didn't see the speed label get added, so let's do this.add speed label. And let's see how to get the, it looks like it takes a string text argument and then an int columns argument. So if you look at the JText field constructor, let's see if we can view it on Oracle.com. There we go. If you look at the constructors, it's kind of misleading. We didn't throw an error. It does take one that takes an argument columns, the specified number of columns, which I think we may have done in one of the previous projects. So notice that our getWidth returns an int, which just so happens to work with that number of columns constructor. So unbeknownst to us, we wanted this one, which will give it an initial text value, but it's actually taking it as the number of columns. So we have to turn our width and height values into a string. An easy way to do that is just concatenate it to a string. So then it'll be a string and it'll call the right constructor and we'll get those correct initial values. And check that out, look. Awesome. They are in there. And I'll leave it up to you to figure out how to set the selected speed value by default, because I think we set it to medium by default. And so I'll let you figure out how to set that in the settings. This is a great starting point. Let's see what happens when we click now. Looks like the program still runs. So I think this is a great spot. I'm going to leave it up to you to keep developing from here. And I'll probably come out in a couple days with another helpful video. But in the meantime, get started. Get everything subbed out like we have here. I tried to show you a nice bottom-up approach, something that'll get you a nice MVP, minimum viable product, quickly. And if you have any questions, I still got office hours. Please drop by if you have any questions. Talk to the tutors. But drop by office hours. I haven't had any guests for a long time, and I love working with you all. So with that, I'll let you go. Catch you later.